Hello and welcome to Experts Live UK Community Voices. This series is all about the people behind the Microsoft community, their stories and how they got where they are today. In each episode, I sit down with speakers, experts and community leaders from across the Microsoft ecosystem to talk about their journeys, how they got started, the challenges they faced and ultimately what led them to where they are today. So, whether you're just starting out in your career in tech or you're deep into your career, the goal here is to share real stories and real lessons and real experiences from the real community. Today, I'm joined by Nate. Hello, Nate.
Hello, Bruce. It's good to be here. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks. Thank you for joining me as my co-host today. It's great to have you with me. But we're obviously not alone. Today, we're joined by a very special guest in the form of Mr. Andrew Taylor, who is CTO at Software Central. He's also an MVP and a long-time Intune community contributor. I could name off the top of my head a bunch of tools that you've built, and of course the Intune newsletter as well, which is a weekly read for me, also in the Intune space. So welcome to the show, Andrew.
No, thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Great. Well, I've already done a bit of introduction to you, but let's hear it in your words. Can you start by introducing yourself to listeners, please?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew. As you said, I'm the CTO at Software Central, Intune MVP, Security Copilot MVP. And yeah, I've been doing Intune for a lot of the time. And before that, SCCM, SMS, Boost. I've been building PCs since the day of the CD-ROM with the XP key engraved on the top of it.
When you start with Ghost, there's a certain level of time in between
Yes.
Ghost and now that kind of
Most
is
listeners will have no idea what we're talking about there with Ghost.
I don't think I even know what Ghost is.
Oh, that dates me and you, Andrew, I'm afraid.
No,
I think
I
we're of
feel
a
old
similar
now.
vintage. That's great. So what does your early career look like? How did you sort of get started in tech?
Not deliberately. I went to university and studied business and marketing, thinking I'd go and do
Okay.
something down that route, and then kind of fell into IT. I don't know how. It just kind of happened. So I started at the bottom, at the service desk level, taking telephone calls all day, every day. Worked my way up through desktop support, server management, people management, and then decided to focus on Intune, which is kind of where we are now. And I've been doing this for a long time. A long, long time. I have the grey hairs to show for it.
I understand. I have some similar grey hairs, but that is all good. So you mentioned Intune specifically. I'm guessing it wasn't a straight line from desktop support to kind of Intune. I'm guessing there was, you mentioned SCCM Config Manager earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Talk us a bit through about how you sort of got from just basic support to picking a speciality, a specialism within tech.
Yes, so I spent 7 years in the NHS doing desktop support initially. Obviously, as time progressed and Windows 7 started to come along, management was a bit more of a thing than back, instead of the old days where you just turned up with a USB key full of apps and ran through them all and spent hours deploying a PC. So at that point we moved into, I think it was still SMS then, but soon switched to SCCM. And I realized, I've always been a desktop person. It's in the blood. And that was a natural progression rather than swapping myself all day, every day for the rest of my life, to move into the kind of the servery bit, but still on the device level. So SCCM and then Intune Autopilot came along and I thought, oh, that's exciting. Let's give that a try. And then COVID hit and I was kind of sitting there thinking, I'm glad I moved to
good idea.
Intune and Autopilot.
Yeah, bit of a game changer, really.
Yes,
COVID.
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
I'm sure I could put words into your mouth as to why, but why? why was that a good move for you at that time?
Suddenly, the whole world had to work remotely, and that's just SCCM. Yeah, it worked. You could cloud manage and cloud manage them, but everyone then had group policies, and the group policy runs on startup, and unless you've got an always-on VPN, your group policy doesn't hit, and then users are ringing up saying, "Oh, my machine's not working anymore, or it hasn't checked in for so many days, it's lost the domain trust." And literally overnight, everyone just went, "Christ, we have to manage all these remotely. Let's throw in Intune and get on with it." I was working at a bus company, and I had people dropping laptops off in my house, so I could I could rebuild them
Blimey.
social distanced, and then ring them the next day saying it's outside the house, come and pick it up.
Pile of laptops on your doorstep, make sure you pick up the right one kind of
Yes,
world.
absolutely. Yeah. Please don't knock or
Interesting.
come in.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. All the devices, please sanitize them before you drop them off.
Yes.
Very
Yeah.
different times.
Yes.
So that's how you got sort of into Intune specifically through EUC. So how did you start sort of like sharing your knowledge rather than just simply consuming content and learning for yourself? How did that go?
I went into consulting roles at MSPs. So I went from enterprise internal IT to kind of MSP level where you do a bit of everything and pray it all works. So I was doing the same thing. In an enterprise, you do something and then you move on to the next thing because you never need to do that again. In an MSP, you're doing the same thing repetitively. So, you're deploying Intune, you're pushing out scripts, and it's constant one customer after the other. So I was building all these scripts and apps and thought, I'm building this and I'm using it for me, but would it not be nice for other people to use it? And I've always had the idea that rather than sell stuff personally, obviously works different, rather than sell stuff personally, I would rather more people used it. So instead of 2 people paying, I could have 100 people just enjoying it. So I thought, let's build a blog, and it kind of spiraled from there.
So the blog came first then?
Yes, the blog was first, and then the scripts. I mean, I think my first blog post was probably a script, so it was very much hand in hand. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've always been a scripty person, but then recently the blog has expanded into more information. My guides get more visits than the scripts do.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that. Interesting.
Yes.
I'm not surprised to hear that. I mean, I've been following your content for a really long time, and it's extremely helpful. There's always a blog written by you on something.
It's when I hit a problem myself and I Google it, and then my own blog post comes up. I go, oh, I've clearly done this before.
But that's why we do, right? That's why you write the blog.
Yeah.
We've definitely interviewed speakers, people like yourself, who've said exactly that. Like probably a good half of the people we've interviewed have said that, which is a good sort of accolade for your content. That's really cool.
Not good for my memory, though. Good for the content, not a good sign for my memory.
No. And AI is clearly not going to help with well, let's jump onto that then. So Google obviously came first, and the first erosion of memory, and that you don't have to remember everything anymore. You can just Google for the answer. What's your view on your, and generally your experience with AI, and what you generally make on its sort of impact on tech in general?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Everyone says it's going to take over, but I've tried building scripts with it. I do graph a lot, as you can imagine, and it just makes up commandlets, but it confidently makes up commandlets. It says, oh, yeah, this will work. And then you say that doesn't work, and then it will recommend 3 other things which don't work, and then you go back to the first one again. And because it's got to learn off content. So, A, I don't trust it to get it right. And B, if everyone just starts using AI and no one posts blogs anymore, where's AI going to learn from? It's at some point it's gonna hit a limit where it's gonna say, I don't know, and it'll just start making stuff up even worse.
Exactly, or it will get sort of high on its own supply. Effectively, it will, you'll end up with people writing blogs that are generated by AI content that are wrong, and then a cycle of it learning off of bad information.
Yes, exactly. Yes, yeah, and there's a lot of AI generated content out there, and a lot of it is not quite correct.
It has to be said, I have enjoyed watching you point out it.
That's just because I'm getting old and grumpy. I just go through and go, nope, that's wrong.
But
I think it must be interesting though to look at some of the newer ways people are using AI, specifically in your area in terms of like development, because I think you're right, especially if you kind of still go into like ChatGPT or Claude or things like that to help you build your sort of scripts. I mean, that's one thing, right? But using something like GitHub Copilot and, where you've got a lot of customization with things like custom skills, plugins, you could literally create your own. In fact, I think, did Merrill not post something the other day that was his own skills.md file or something which included all of the Graph API endpoints? or something along those lines. So like, I'm interested to know like what your thoughts are on that, and whether you guys like, use that internally, because I feel like that's the kind of thing that you guys would use.
So I've used GitHub Copilot for kind of the repetitive. I've got to run this same function 400 times in the script. Can you just change it for me, because it can't get that wrong. Merrill does magic. He's some kind of wizard. So I try not to, as much as I'd love to be able to copy him, he has insights into graph that none of us could even get close to. Internally, my concern with using AI too much is the security and the safety around it, because it doesn't check itself. There have been so many breaches on LinkedIn and stuff saying, I gave AI access to this, and now I saw one the other day where someone they tricked the AI into buying £8,000 worth of stuff for like 10% of what it should have cost.
Wow.
And it's the security, and in the line of work we're in, we build software that has access to the tenant, basically God level access to the tenant. I can't risk a security breach, because that would take us down overnight. So whilst we can use AI for hints and tips, it doesn't code anything.
Yeah.
I've had good success with GitHub Copilot for code reviews, for a sort of second opinion. In other words, where there's sort of human going, yes, that's good, no, bin that, in a sort of software engineering sense. And it's fantastic for mocks, basically. If I want anything kind of visual, never, ever will I ship such a mock to a customer, because it's a mock. By definition, it's a mock. But the point is, real engineer builds something that kind of looks like this. It's
yes,
kind of great
they all look very similar, though, don't they? Everything is AI created. Yes. It all has a very similar look to it, which I think can be a bit of a giveaway on that one.
Yeah, and that's the downside of shipping AI rather than just using it for mocks, because completely. Part of your sort of differentiator from a software perspective is what it looks like and how you interact with it. And if it all looks the same, what's your differentiator?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you've mentioned basically your career, broadly speaking, shaping how you got into kind of Intune. Did Microsoft kind of come with it, because that's what your sort of employers at the time were sort of interested in, or was that something you kind of intentionally shaped?
I've always worked with Microsoft tech since MS-DOS 6. Working my way up from that. So it's where I'm comfortable. I can do bits on a Linux box, for example, but Microsoft is where I'm comfortable, and I can take apart Windows and put it back together again. So from a troubleshooting perspective, it made sense to be that from the support side, and then when you go into managing it, it's easier to manage because you know what it's doing. I know that Intune ultimately is setting registry keys and files. There's no magic behind it. You just have to know where to look. So that background of Microsoft pushed me towards the Microsoft side of things.
I'd be willing to bet that sort of a background in support is still sort of useful, because it's the sort of troubleshooting skills on top of Windows that empower the rest.
Yes, yeah, I think it's critical for anyone who wants to do it really thoroughly, because it's once you've broken something and fixed it, you know how it works. If you haven't done that, and everyone has to have that one big mistake to get over the terror of breaking things. So you've got to step over those to be able to be a good admin. And I think part of the problem these days is nobody does anything at the command line anymore, which I think you learn so much more by starting in, command prompt in our case, and then PowerShell these days. And you can do more. So if the computer's completely knackered, you can still get to a PowerShell and fix things.
Yeah, so the lowest level of input, effectively. It makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've often said if I had to lose one of my input things, it would be the mouse, not the keyboard. I can get by with a keyboard. I probably couldn't get by with just a mouse.
I agree. I agree with that. So I'm going to move us on to go back sort of to community now. Thinking again about your newsletter. great example of giving back. It must be a lot of work to put out every single week on a week's summary of what's been happening in the Intune world. But that is my pulse check, personally speaking, for what's going on in the Intune world. How did that specifically start versus just ad hoc blogging?
That was an idea just before I was nominated for MVP. I thought that because I was working in consulting, I needed to keep fresh on what was going on. So I was just reading all these posts day in, day out. And I thought, it would not make sense for me, if I'm reading them anyway, to write my notes that other people can see rather than just for me to see. So for me, it's invaluable because it keeps me fresh on Intune. I often have to go back and find the post I mentioned a few weeks back in the newsletter because I remember reading it. So it keeps me fresh. It is a good few hours work every week though.
What's your process usually for picking out those then? Is that just what you see kind of shared on socials as well?
I have an RSS reader with 250 feeds in it, I think. So I scroll through that every day and then I add to it if I stumble across stuff on LinkedIn, Reddit, anywhere like that isn't already in my feed.
250 feeds on Intune. I can think of like 10, possibly.
I can think about 10.
Yes, it's grown a lot. I think it started at about 20, and now it's up to 250.
Very cool. Long live RSS feeds.
If they take those off, I'm completely knackered. Then I'm manually checking 250 sites a week, which doesn't sound very pleasant.
No, it doesn't sound like fun. Don't worry, AI can build you a solution for that. But let's move on.
It won't be secure, but it'll do it.
Yeah. It won't be Intune information either. But
no, and it probably won't be from last week either. But it'll be something.
It will be something.
Yes,
that's what we can say with confidence.
Yeah,
that makes sense. So you started with the blog. The blog contained scripts. Then came the newsletter. How about sort of like in-person speaking and conferences?
I can't remember how that happened, to be honest. I built scripts and things, and then I can't remember which is the first one. It might have been Workplace Ninjas UK in London, or it might have been the MEM Summit in Paris. One of those came first. I can't remember which. But yeah, you've got to put yourself out there, haven't you, and see how it goes. So I thought, why not give it a try and go on stage and see how it ends up. It's a leap into the unknown at that point because, as you've probably seen, I'm more of a text person. I don't do YouTube videos or anything like that. I don't appear on many of webinar type things. I'm definitely a keyboard warrior, but I push myself out and have a bash at events. I've done a lot.
How do you find them? Given, as you said, it's not your natural sort of home ground, not the thing you're most comfortable with. How do you find events? How did you sort of find that first experience of speaking?
Less worrying than I thought it would be. There's a lot of people get nervous, but I don't know if it's an age thing or because I don't do videos, so I'm not used to the having prompts and scripts and all the rest. I just go on and wing it and hope that I can speak for an hour. So I turn up with a handful of slides with a few pictures on and just talk for as long as I'm allowed to talk for. So it's as long as the audience are involved. It's when you get to one and you got questions, you say any questions, and everyone just sits there in silence for 20 minutes. I'd rather have people talking and asking questions and kind of prompting me along the way.
I think in any sort of speaking engagement, it's nice to have that conversational aspect, right? Yeah, when you're just sort of speaking at the crowd, it can always be a little bit daunting, I guess, and not quite fun. So yeah, totally.
Yeah,
agree.
it's just not as exciting as when people talk back. I can understand if you're in a room of 200 people, they probably don't want to, but it'd be nice if one or two pluck up the courage to.
It's either that, or you did such a good job telling them about the content. They didn't have any questions. They didn't need to ask any questions.
Or they fell asleep 4 minutes in. That's the other risk.
Yeah, I always find that questions is a good sort of pulse check for engagement. And if there aren't any questions, to me that says they're not listening, which is a shame, but sometimes is the reality. There we are.
And
So
I tell you where you wouldn't get questions is where, well, potentially you might do getting people contact you afterwards, but with people looking at books, which kind of takes us on to the Intune cookbook,
Nice segue.
right?
Yes.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was That was nice news when we heard that coming out first time.
Yep. So I was approached by Pact a couple of years ago now, maybe just over, and they said, "Do you want to write a book?" And you kind of sit there and think, probably not. No. I'm busy, but then you think about it and think, published author sounds quite nice. And they wanted to do one on graph. I thought, well, I'm okay at graph. I've done enough scripting. So, yeah, I agreed to do the first one, which sold well, I think. I don't do books for money. That'll be my tip for everyone. It doesn't pay well. But yeah, it was 6 to 8 months, I think the first one took to write from scratch. A lot of evenings and weekends around full-time work and family and all the rest. And then they came, I think, late last year and said, "Do you want to do a second edition?"
Brilliant.
It's the kind of process of putting together a book, because to go from will you write a book, yes, to here is a book, because you've got to think about structure, presumably, how you're going to take, weave it. I'm guessing I've never written a book. Tell me, what's the process?
So thankfully, because I had a publishers involved in the first one, which was just really useful because they already have structured documents. They've got themes for your paragraph formatting and stuff like that. So they say, right, we want a book on this, and then you give them a list of the chapters you want to cover and what you want to cover in the chapters, and then they kind of help you build that out. But ultimately, the content is entirely up to you. And in my case, it was sitting down and working out what I'd have liked to have learnt when I was starting out as a consultant or just an Intune admin, and how I can teach that in a book.
Great process. Good way of thinking about what to write about. What do I wish I'd known X years ago? Yeah, very interesting. The other thing I was going to ask about that I should have really sort of gone down this avenue earlier. You'd mentioned MVP nominations. I was going to ask about your route into becoming an MVP. And from what you said so far, it happened before, in-person speaking, based on your blog. Tell us about that.
I had a slightly roundabout route. I was on a Microsoft webinar thing, and Claire, who is our MVP person for the UK, did a bit on becoming an MVP and said, set up a meeting with me if you want to learn more. So I set up a meeting with her, and she nominated me at the end of our meeting. So it was, most people get nominated by other MVPs or Microsoft staff they've had a long relationship with, but somehow I got lucky and was nominated at the end of my initial call with Claire at Microsoft. It was it was an odd approach.
Yeah, so you have to be. See, this is. I'm not an MVP. You can tell from these questions, but that's okay. You have to be nominated, but do you apply, or is it a case of once you're nominated by one or more people, then you're an MVP? How does that work?
You have to be nominated first by either an MVP or a Microsoft employee, and then you have to apply for it, where you have to fill in all of your. Well, it's over the past 12 months. So if you apply at the start, they're not going to accept you because you've got to prove 12 months worth of work, and it has to be not work. So it has to be personal stuff. Anything you do for your employer doesn't count. So
Yes,
then you fill in this really long form with all the stuff you've done, why you want to be an MVP, what you do for the community, and then pray that you get accepted. Every month they bring more MVPs in.
Interesting. Makes
and you
sense.
have to renew it every year, right?
Yes, at the end of March every year we have to do it all over again. It's exactly the same form as when you signed up, and you submit it, and again pray that you're renewed rather than accepted. But it's exactly the same steps, and you get to year 2 and you think, have I done as much as I did in year 1? Have I done enough? Should they expect you more? Because nobody really knows what they need. And then year 3, you're doing more again. And by year 4, you're going, I don't think I can do any more than I did last year. It's already ridiculous the amount I'm doing. Yeah. But because nobody knows what's required, we just all panic and do as much as we possibly can.
That's fair enough. It's good to know that I'm not going for MVP myself or anything, but you're not the only one that panics and just does things because there's this "am I doing enough" thing going on in the background.
Yes, it's always there.
Always there. And speaking of doing more things, we are very pleased to announce, I think we've done this digitally already as well, you'll be speaking at Experts Live UK in June. So congratulations, it'll be very good to have you with
Thank
us.
you.
What's your session all about?
I am doing a session on some tips and trips on getting started with Intune. So some common pitfalls not to fall down. I've set up hundreds of tenants, and there are some things which are these little tick boxes and stuff that are hidden in a menu somewhere that everyone ignores, and then 2 years down the line it comes back to bite you in some way. So I've put them all together, and I'll run through each of these things and what to avoid doing when you're setting up your first tenant. Or if you didn't have an existing tenant, you might want to run through and check you haven't missed any.
I'd be willing to put money on the fact that some will have done so.
Probably. There was some I when I was writing the presentation for it, I thought, I don't think I've done that at work. So I did the same thing and said, I'll go and retrofit that one in.
That's fair enough. Well, it's great to have you. You speak at Experts Live UK. We'll talk about this more at the end. But for those of you who are new to the podcast and haven't heard me witter on about it before, it's the 11th and 12th of June in London in person, and tickets are on sale now. And I want to say £219 a person, but it's in my notes at the end of the show. So if you want to fact check me, it will be later. And it would be great to see as many of you guys from the community there as is possible, to hear Andrew among many other speakers. Now, for those of you who have listened to this podcast before, you'll know that I believe community is super, super important. I can think of multiple times in my career and in my life where being part of a community has shaped my career, has shaped my opportunities. So I was going to ask you effectively, Andrew, the same kind of question. What role has sort of community played in shaping your career and what you've got from life over the years?
It's weird. Intune is used by companies worldwide. I look at some of the people on the news edge, I think, wow, but you don't even think that they'd be using Intune, these massive companies and racing cars and stuff like that. I think that's really cool. But then it's also IT's strangely small as well. So you end up just knowing everyone after a couple of years. Everyone in Intune knows everyone else in Intune. And the community, I get on well with everyone at events. All the MVPs are great. Everyone who works in the Intune space. And it's just nice to have that friendliness, so you can go to an event and everyone just gets on. We can be working for competing companies, and there's just no competition among MVPs. We just all get on and chat as if we all work for the same place. And career-wise, it's made such a difference because you're applying for roles, and instead of just being another CV, people might have heard of you at the company, so it does give you a bit of a leg up there as well.
Definitely agree. Although I would say do it for the right reasons. Do it because you want to contribute, which clearly, as we
said, MVP you're renewed every year. If your heart's not in it, you're going to quickly tire. So, yes, you could probably get the first MVP just by forcing yourself to do it, but then you're going to get halfway through the second year and you'll lose interest and you won't get renewed. It has to be something that you enjoy doing and you want to do. I reckon if you ask any MVP, did they want to be an MVP? The answer would be no, I just wanted to help the community. It's just an added bonus that you got at the end of it.
It's good to hear. It certainly seems that way from being around the MVP community and the Microsoft community more broadly. There are loads of people out there that just want to just contribute, basically, because they know how it feels to not have known the things they now know, which is really cool.
Yeah, a lot of us started pre-internet, so you can imagine what it was like back then.
It was all about books.
Yeah.
Because there was no other option. Yeah,
yes,
totally.
Or finding someone who's hit that problem before that you happen to work with, rather than finding someone randomly on the internet.
Yes. So I imagine with that kind of in mind, you've got some interesting horror stories of the things that have gone wrong. So with that in mind, is there a lesson you wish you'd known then that you've learnt now?
I think just don't be scared. Yes, I've broken some horrible machines, some big breaks and stuff like that. But it's part of learning. Obviously, if you do the same thing 2 or 3 times, you might want to have a look and see what's going on there. But that part of the learning is by fixing things. So you can't be afraid, because if you go through constantly terrified of breaking something, you're not going to be great at what you do, because you'll be constantly worried about what's going to happen at the end of it. You've just got to go for it, and hope for the best. And imposter syndrome is a thing forever. I still have it. I don't think it'll ever disappear. There's always someone you speak to and you think, oh, I wish I was as good as you. I'm sure that's just the case forever. So don't fight it, just roll with it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Good, solid advice. So thinking, I guess, just to sort of start to round us off, about the Microsoft technology space. You've seen lots of things in your time. The transition, we talked about DOS, so pre-GUI in this conversation. We've talked about Ghost, we've talked about Windows XP, right up to Intune and sort of modern management technology across like devices and desktops in particular. What's the one thing that excites you the most around sort of generally where Microsoft tech is heading and the community is heading right now?
Well, that's a tricky one, isn't it? So, I mean, hardware is stagnated. I think we can all see that. Computer hardware hasn't really changed for like 10 years or so now. Yes, we've got ARM chips and Macs suddenly jumped into enterprise, but the physical hardware is physical hardware. It's not like back in the 90s where, the processor speed would double overnight. It's just, that hasn't happened. Obviously, everything's going very cloud. So, the 365 apps are almost cloud first now. If you look at Outlook and Teams, which are just wrappers for the web. So everything is going that way. I wonder how far before the OS is, Windows 365 becomes just the standard, and everyone just has effectively a dumb client that connects to whatever cloud portal. How that works for people who travel on trains, I'm not quite sure. But I mean,
which would be funny and odd, right? Because it's not like, because we've had thin clients for a really long time. So going backward, but connecting to a cloud PC rather than a server in in the back room somewhere.
I think that's part of the problem, though, is because we're all really scarred from those early thin clients, which were a horrible experience both for users and for the people who have to manage them. And so those of us who are older and have been there before, looking at those, going, "No, I'm not trusting a thin client again." Whereas the newer generation are going, "We don't know what your problem is. Let's try it." And
thin client sounds great.
Yeah, it actually works fine. And we're going, "Oh God, no." We've been there. We've had to remove them again afterwards. They
always say that tech is kind of cyclical, so it's kind of a matter of time. But it won't be called a thin client; it'll be called something else. It will look like a thin client to you and I, because we were there before. But there
they can't call it that because it'll have the wrong opinions. Yes, exactly. Yes,
regardless of the reality. I remember when the Windows 365 Link device was unveiled, being at, what was it? I think it was an internal customer event at some previous company. One of the attendees just standing up and going, "Look, let's just call it what it is. It's a thin client. It's not even that good a thin client. Let's just all move on in that knowledge." And the whole room just a round of applause, which is like, interesting. It's not what I was expecting, but there we are.
Yeah, that's a marketing challenge that Microsoft have to try and deal with.
It is,
and I think AI is the other one, because it's the same thing. The newer generation are all, they go straight to ChatGPT instead of Google, whereas others of us go to Google and rather than ChatGPT. So there's going to be a shift there. The younger generations are used to just kind of clicking an app and uninstalling it and reinstalling it rather than having to go through registry keys and delete whatever's left behind. So I think there is going to be a big shift. I mean, there are rumors of, an OS where it's just a text prompt and AI does it all, but I don't know if we're quite there yet, or how many people are going to trust that level of control to effectively a computer.
There's the trust, but there's also sometimes you need, the good thing about GUI is if you haven't got the inspiration, or dashboarding I'm thinking of, the inspiration to know what you're interested in kind of seeing, something that visually gives you options to click on, could be kind of useful. But I mean, I'm of a different generation, aren't I? So yeah.
I'm very much the same there. I think we are not the same mindset as as the younger generation coming in now, and we're looking for a start button and all the good stuff. Yeah.
I don't know about text-based OS, but I could certainly go for like a Tony Stark Jarvis style thing. I mean, I'd be all over that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well,
I don't know how you type a book on something like that, though. That would take a while.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would take a while. Keep your Windows 11 laptop maybe in a drawer for that day.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Rather than hammering random buttons in the sky above your head.
Yes. Well, what a great way to bring us to the end of this episode of Experts Live UK Community Voices. But before we wrap up, I must, of course, mention that tickets for our conference, which is the 11th and 12th of June, are now on sale. Now, let me just see, did I get my facts right? I don't know whether there's still early bird tickets available. Nate, do you know if there are?
Yes, there are, yeah. Early bird tickets still available.
Okay, so there are two flavours of ticket. There's a one-day ticket and a two-day ticket. The one-day tickets are £130, so even cheaper than I originally said. Look at that. Lucky you guys. And day two tickets, the early bird pricing is £183, so also earlier than I said. But even after that pricing, they're only £215, so they're not going to break the bank. So that's good news. And you'll get to hear more from Andrew and, of course, a whole bunch of other people that we've spoken to on the podcast over the last sort of couple of months. So lots to kind of look forward to in the Microsoft space. So all that's really left to say is thank you so much for joining us, Andrew, for sharing your experience, and we'll be joined in our next episode. We do actually have a next guest, which is very exciting. Our first guest who doesn't live in the UK, and this is the one and only Mr. Steve Weiner. So if you know who he is, also in the Intune space, please tune in for that one. And we haven't actually recorded that one yet, so you'll have time to ask questions. So if you'd like to ask a question of Steve, you can send it to myself, to Nate, or to @ExpertsLiveUK on LinkedIn. And I'll be picking the best questions, or just cooking up my own like normal, to ask Steve. So please do that. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode today or any past episodes, please do like, subscribe and share. It helps everything we kind of do here. So the best place to do that is for everything, including the conference, at Experts Live on LinkedIn. But of course, this podcast, you'll know because you're listening to it, is on YouTube and is on Spotify. So please do like and subscribe. And all that's really left to say is to say thank you very much for watching or listening. And we will see you all next time for more Experts Live UK Community Voices. Thank you.